Hello and God bless you. This is Ellen Mongan and welcome to Wow Mom. We're delighted you have joined us today and we're so glad that you come back again and again. I have a special guest today. I'm going to introduce her right away. It's Carrie Huebner. Is that right? Huebner?
That's correct.
Close enough. See, we're going to help me practice. So Carrie and I have known each other a long time and we just came back from Orlando where all of us got fed at Catholic Medical. It's like a retreat and an education all in one. And since I'm not medical and Carrie is and my husband is, they learned a lot more than I did. But it was such a wonderful time, Carrie. Wasn't it fun?
It was amazing. That was my first CMA conference and I thoroughly enjoyed it.
So I didn't know that. I forgot. That's super. And so we got to meet a lot of people and this every year come back. Pat and I actually are the first like 50 families, first 50 people, at least we're a very small group. We started, we're the young people. Now we're the old people. There's like nuns and priests and so many people. And I was so excited to see Carrie. So before you begin, let's just say your bio, unless you want to say your bio yourself, which you might read the other people. I did get back. I'm not a reader. Usually, first of all, Jane Ann reads for me the bio, and she probably thinks that's nice. But it's really because I don't read as good as I talk. I can talk great and then read poorly. So here we go. Carrie Huebner is CFCP, a PA, and has been married 17 years to her wonderful husband, Rick, and he's a delight. While struggling on their own fertility journey, they found the help they needed through the Creighton method and model, and you all know about that. Many of you Catholics know already, but after some will not know, so Carrie will explain that. And the NaPro technology. They now have 5 NaPro miracles: Ava, Ellis, Max, Therese, and Jude. Carrie was born and raised in Melbourne, Florida. That's where I met Carrie, and attended the University of Florida, obtained her Bachelor of Health Science and Master of Physical Therapy degree. She is a Certified FertilityCare Practitioner for the Creighton Model System. Carrie wants to be a part of bringing the best health and wellness to women and couples. Due to her passion in helping couples and families heal from a physical, mental, and spiritual aspects, she's ready to help in any way. She eventually went on to attend PA school at Emory University when she moved to Atlanta, graduating with the highest honors. Additionally, to help make this happen, she will soon be launching her heart's desire, Santa Casa Center, and is working on her master's in health science and integrative medicine at George Washington University School of Medicine. Drawn to evangelize and education, Carrie and her husband have also provided information as well as personal witness to groups of all ages on marriage, family, infertility, and NaPro technology. I'm reading a foreign language actually, but you know what? They will come to your church and they will help you in any way. And you know how we do on air. I'm doing my bag. So you know, sometimes we have things in our life happen that we don't control. We go like, women all want babies, you know, they do. When they get married, something like a secret heart's desire if they don't say their husband. And then some they really have hard times. So Carrie's the one to call. So Carrie, you start out. What do you want to share first?
I'm just excited to be out here. I haven't been able to speak probably in 3 to 4 years being in PA school and everything. And, you know, everything has a season. And so my husband and I speak frequently about our own journey with infertility, with natural family planning and things like that, which I love to do. But, you know, that wasn't the season the last couple of years. So I'm excited to be launching Santa Casa Center, to be helping families, and I'm excited to be out there again, to be spreading the good news.
It is good news. You know, we every trial can be a triumph, and then sometimes it takes a long time because, you know, with Jesus, there's always well, the Father say, "Please, Lord, I want this prayer like yesterday," but it's usually yes.
That's the story of my life, Ellen.
This is my personality. Yes, no, or wait.
I'm going to give you this, but first you have to wait.
The wait part is harder. You know, you wait 9 months to have baby, you think it's eternity on the first one, but then you kind of get the hang of it. You're like this. Well, can a baby wait a little longer? You're on the way to wait. But no, it's a hard thing. Wait is hard for me. If God says no, and then you go, okay, well, it's no, you face the mountain, but if it's wait, you go, how long? And I'm waiting. So tell Carrie, how you help women and what you do, because there's a lot of women out there crying, all I want is to have a baby.
Yeah. So, you know, my interest is in general medicine, but I definitely have a passion for infertility and for women and couples struggling with that particular thing. And so I take a more, I guess you could say, integrative or wholeness approach to health including infertility. And so, because infertility really isn't just the reproductive system, it's your thyroid, it's your adrenals, it's your whole body. And so I approach fertility and health very much from that perspective. And so Santa Casa, which will hopefully we'll start seeing patients in mid-November, early December, once my credentialing comes through with insurance. And so I'll be offering services to learn the Creighton model of charting, which is a medical model of menstrual cycle charting, which gives me a lot of information about how healthy a reproductive system is, as well as when to test, which is very important, gives us a lot more accurate way of testing, as well as to deliver treatment. And then based on that chart, that's kind of our jumping off point. Then we do, we sort of look at the whole body and where you are, not only from a physical aspect, but from a mental aspect and a spiritual aspect, because those are just as important.
Yes, yes. And that's the thing that's different, I mean, we're so complicated. We're reading this book, Carrie's called Life is Messy, but so are every person. We're all so different and differently made. And what works for one guy doesn't work for another guy. So
Correct.
I want you to tell us more about can you tell your fertility story? Like how, what you and Rick went through, or I like the thing about the pizza, but that's just me.
Yeah. That's funny. I haven't told that
Italian pizza.
Yes, and and that's the beauty of integrative medicine, just kind of how you mentioned the personalized aspect of it too, because what makes one person click and work does not make the next person. And so that is a principle of integrative medicine, is really treating the individual, whereas a lot of our medicine is very fragmented and cookie cutter. But yeah, my own fertility and journey. So my husband and I were married in 2004. And like many married couples, kind of spent the first year sort of getting to know each other and stuff. And then we thought, well, we were excited about growing our family. And so I just assumed, we would get pregnant. And then kind of month after month after month after month went by. And luckily I was already charting with Creighton. So I already knew I had a little bit of irregular cycles and some issues to begin with. But I wasn't prepared for the several year journey it took us to eventually get pregnant. And so after many rounds of injections and medications and testing and all of the disappointment every month, seeing that negative line, and many prayers and many beggings and all of that, we eventually ended up out at the Pope Paul VI Institute in Omaha, Nebraska, which was founded by Dr. Hilders, who founded NaProTECHNOLOGY. And had surgery on Valentine's Day in 2007. So my husband always laughs because I'm a Florida girl. And so I'm like, will it be cold in Omaha in February? So it was 10 below the day of my surgery, and I had never been in anything close to that cold. So as I'm pulling layer after layer after layer in the pre-op, the nurse was like, "You're not from here, are you?" Like, no. Yes. And so about 2 months later, we had actually gone to the wine festival in Seaside, Florida, and I wasn't really feeling great, but you're on a lot of these fertility medications and stuff, and they don't make you feel great to begin with. And I was kind of frustrated with the whole thing and about ready to just sort of give up or call the Institute and just tell them that what they were doing wasn't working. And so that night I was just craving pizza and wings. And so we had pizza and wings in bed, which I just never do. And I'm a health nut. So I don't eat that kind of stuff. And so my husband couldn't dial fast enough, And so the next morning I took a pregnancy test, because they always ask you when you call. And so I took it sort of begrudgingly, and sure enough, it was positive. So I got to work, and of course I didn't believe it. And luckily my first patient canceled. So I immediately went to CVS and bought every single pregnancy test they had, took all of them, and all of them were positive. And so, about 9-10 months later, we had our first, Ava Catherine. And then when she was about 13 months old, I thought, well, we should probably start trying for number 2. We definitely want to have more. It's probably going to take us a while. And lo and behold, first try. And so my husband came out of the shower one night to pizza and wings on the bed. And that's sort of how, through every kid, I've always used the pizza and wings. And that's how he knows. One day I had him delivered at work. I think that was with Max. And so that's how he always finds out he gets delivered pizza and wings. So, and now we have five beautiful babies, which have all been brought, to this earth, obviously by God, but also through the help of restorative reproductive medicine, really, just which is more of a disease-based approach, where you're really getting to the root of the problem, as opposed to what majority of fertility treatments are these days with IVF, IUI, things like that. It's really those more jump over the problem and they're just sort of trying to force the pregnancy, but they never actually fix the problem. Where our approach is really more looking into to figure out what the problem is. It takes longer. It's a lot of times it takes a long time to, not a long time, but it takes longer to sort of get down to the root of the problem. But in the end, it tends to be more effective and better for you because, you know, infertility is just a symptom. You know, not having a baby obviously is horrible, but that's, you know, there's usually other repercussions besides the fact that you can't get pregnant from a health standpoint. And so it's important to kind of get to the root of what your issue is and treat it appropriately.
I think so. On every medical thing here, I had postpartum depression, you know, usually mentioned a lot, but it was because I was up the first 12 years, I was anorexic. So I didn't eat or sleep for 12 years. And maybe it would be kind of that kind of sadness. And oh my word. So I'm glad when they discover what the root is, no one ever said anything. I actually mentor women, and I was mentoring a woman that had postpartum, and I knew that she had 5 children close together and 4 boys, the first 4. And so I learned that, gee, she's not eating, she was an anorexic, and she's not sleeping. And I saw my own problem, but it was years later. So, you know, find a doctor that's a thinking man or woman that can say, I'm gonna take the time, the what, why, how, and when. The when happens after you know what, why, and how. Carrie, does it help also? And this is a silly question, it's in my brain, because my one daughter had a lot of miscarriages. And like back-to-back miscarriages, there help for people like that just finally conceive, but then they don't keep their baby. And that's even sadder because you go, whoa, what happened?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. You know, in the normal medical world, they don't even go looking until you've had 3 miscarriages. And oftentimes now they don't even do an ultrasound or any blood work until you're considered viable around 12 weeks. And so if you lose the baby before then, well, oh well. And so we're definitely much more aggressive. Every life is a life worth saved. We're definitely not God. Ultimately, God decides the beginning of life and the end of life, but he certainly gave us science and he gave us knowledge. And so we use that to the most aggressive and to the best of our ability to try to save any baby. And so we do have fairly extensive things we do to try to prevent miscarriage, even before you've miscarried once. So, but if you've had multiple miscarriages, then oftentimes it's because of endometriosis. And so sometimes that requires a surgical intervention with an excision specialist, which most OB/GYNs do not excise endometriosis. So if you have endometriosis, you want to get it taken out, either cut out with a laser or however the surgeon does it, versus ablation, which is where they kind of burn it. And that has a very high recurrence rate. And excision the recurrence rate is very low and it's much more effective. And so I've definitely treated a lot of women with recurrent miscarriages that do end up having endometriosis and may not have any symptoms. Their only symptom may be miscarriage. They may not have painful periods. They may not have all of the symptoms you think of when it comes to endometriosis, but it can definitely be silent. I've found that very frequently, especially in the presence of repetitive miscarriage.
Yeah, well, it's so sad. I, on the other hand, Carrie, was the opposite. I got pregnant on the honeymoon, and it was a month-long honeymoon, and I brought home my souvenir, which is Tyler. And then every time we always say, we looked at each other, we had to name it, but really, we didn't really I didn't like really doing the NFP because it was me.
Yeah.
As I'm really a natural, I guess I'm a naturalist, but we had 8 children. Pat had told me before I married him, I have anorexia, so I probably won't have any children. He won't conceive. I was fine with that. I'm going, okay, good. That'd be great because I could just sit in the sunshine. I was in Florida, bathe and do good. But now I treasure my babies, and I know y'all will too. So if you have any trouble, again, it's Carrie Huebner. We're not going to close off. I want you to know, look up her name and her new vision to her purpose that she knows God has put this on her heart. And also, I just feel like sometimes when you least expect it, I have a friend that got pregnant. She was going to adopt a baby, and before she got, she was pregnant, and the adoption came through, and then she was pregnant too. So you don't know how God's going to do it. God, I count mine as the highest miracle of all is that in my life is to transform me from a flight attendant, anorexic, in love with my husband Patrick, to a mother of 8 children. I do, because was so not what I would have chosen, but it's what gives me the greatest joy. And so many women, right? We don't want to close off their hope, but so many women, there's babies to adopt. Right, there's babies to adopt too.
God always answers our prayers and our desire on our hearts for children. that is such a godly desire, and he will answer that prayer. And it may not be how we envisioned, and it may certainly is not going to usually be in our time. At least my prayers are never in my time.
I'm not
Blessed
God.
are those where God answers their prayers on their time, but I'm not one of them. You know, but we
Amazing.
never
You're
know
like,
what, yeah, we never know what that may look like. It may be a baby, it may be adoption, it may be that God has a special calling for you, and your fruit in your life is something you'd never envisioned, you know. So we just don't know. We have to be faithful, but we always have to keep hope, because God does always answer our prayers.
so what do you tell the woman to, I mean, to build up their hope? I mean, I know what I tell them, because I mentor women, but not in this category. But what do you tell them to keep their hope afloat?
I tell them that I will be with them as long as they want to keep trying, that I won't stop. And I think that in and of itself is usually a big help, because a lot of people have given up on them before. And the other thing is finding reasons for why they are infertile is also brings them a lot of closure, even if they aren't able to conceive, knowing why. I see a lot of women with unexplained infertility, because there's just, you know, generally they don't do a lot of testing and things. They just send them to IVF and that's it, and they don't know why. And so having that why can also bring a lot of closure. But I think just kind of knowing that I'm not going to ever give up, I know, and as long as they want to keep trying, I'll keep trying as well. And I often, you know, will give them, you know, you like adoration for me is a place where so much hope has come, and to look for those signs of hope in other ways besides a pregnancy. But God is listening, and he will let you know he's listening, you know, if you're astute to that.
That's very good. And quiet, you know, quiet time of your own at home with the scriptures to help your mind. Surround yourself with positive influences, women that are going to go. We're going to pray for you, and it's going to happen for you. Or, you know, God has a plan. Don't surround yourself with the gloom and doom people, because at this point, when you're in a trial, you want those uplifting people. So Carrie, I know you have some good stories of people that were, because we had them on the show last time. I don't know which show it was. It might've been Miscarriage Matters, but you had people on this show that the doctors kind of had given up, and then they had a success story, right?
Yeah, sure. We've had plenty of success stories. Let's see, what's a good one? So probably my favorite one, I actually have her baby. She sent me a picture. I keep her baby's picture on my dresser, because just like many of my infertility, you know, it's always been my calling and my heart's desire to open this practice to help women. And it's been a journey, it's been a struggle, and there's been a lot of bumps in the road. And so I keep this baby's picture here to remind me of what God's calling me to do, and that, you know, again, the promised land's out there. And so this particular couple had 3 miscarriages when they came to see us. I think they came to one of my talks or something, and had heard my story and sort of our approach. And I was working with a different physician at the time who also helped with this process. And no reason why, sort of unexplained, really hadn't had, just sort of very, you know, just very dismissed, and, you know, you'll get pregnant eventually, or just keep trying, you know, et cetera, but no reason and no plan. I think, again, you know, it's talking about hope. I think it helps to have a plan. I know, like that, when I'm stressed, I write things down, and I, you know, spring into action. So having sort of a plan is also very helpful, because it kind of gives you something to do, you know. And so we did a lot of extensive testing and thyroid workup and things like that. She did eventually end up getting pregnant in the middle of that. Unfortunately, she lost that baby too, which I remember we all just had this sort of sense of failure, which happens as a provider as well. Sometimes you have to remember, you know, I have to remember myself. I'm not God, and I'm not in control, and only God is in control. But I do take this to heart very deeply. And so that was tough. But eventually, she also ended up having surgery, and she was able to finally conceive. And on the 5th time, she had her rainbow baby. In fact, another thing she gave me is this dandelion. If you can see it.
How beautiful.
It's a dandelion pendant, which I also wear, which is a sign of hope. It's a symbol of hope. And so I keep that close to my heart.
And don't you think that is why doctors do what they do? The thing about doctors that care and doctors that are in Christ is they pray too. That prays for patients, and as well as gives care and wisdom. It is a tough, I feel like, Carrie, is the toughest thing to have a wait answer as waiting for a husband. You know, I got married young as well, but I remember women waiting for the man of their dreams, and that is a hard thing to do. But we know this: they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength and mount up as wings of eagles. They shall run and not be weary, and walk and not faint. And the waiting, I heard Father Kirby, I think it was, say, the longer the wait, the greater the miracle. And so you say, why am I waiting so long? The longer the wait, the greater the miracle. So Elizabeth, I want to bring some of these scripture people, but Elizabeth really waited a long time. She's my story of like hope, but just like, oh, thanks, Lord. I don't think she said that, but if I were her, like she was, I don't know, in her 80s or 90s, or that's way too old for me to be able to nurse and be up all night. But
right.
I'm at 8 o'clock go to bed if it was my way, which is not. So so waiting that long for her, and then what happened? The longer the wait, she produced John the Baptist, who said, you know, he wanted to bring forth the kingdom of God, because proclaim the kingdom, repent, for the kingdom of God is at hand. Who do you know in the Bible? I gave you some examples. You want to talk about any of that?
Well, it's funny you bring up Elizabeth, because Annunciation and Visitation has always been a big symbol of mine in my own infertility journey, and it's why I named my center Santa Casa. So the Annunciation specifically, I would have dreams. I remember one year, I would have a dream about the Annunciation and getting pregnant. And then of course, then I'd wake, it would be so vivid, and I'd wake up and I'd like, oh, I'm not pregnant, you know? And then the year before I got pregnant, that Christmas Eve, I looked to Rick and I said, I think my sister's pregnant. She was sitting next to me in Christmas Eve mass, and she doesn't look pregnant, but I was like, I just have this strong feeling. And that night I had a dream that my sister got pregnant, and then I got pregnant again. And then that year, Rick and I give each other ornaments every year.
Okay.
And he didn't know I had that dream, and he gave me an alabaster statue of the Annunciation. And then I went on to, my sister got pregnant, and I did. That next April I got pregnant. And so the Annunciation has always been a huge symbol of hope. And so that is why my center's named Santa Casa, because it's named after the Basilica del Santa Casa in Loreto, Italy, which holds Mary's house that she grew up in, which is where the tradition holds the Annunciation would have happened. And so that's why I named my center Santa Casa. Also, Santa Casa means holy house, which the womb is kind of like a holy house as well. So,
and that's the hardest thing. I wrote one time I wrote a poem about disappointment, because it's not about disappointment, it's called disappointment, but it truly is. And it was about, like, when you think something's going to be one way, it was about children that are born, because the Lord will allow us to carry a baby. And then my last baby passed away, but then there's women that have a baby and maybe they're Downs, which was, all these different things you could face. But when God gives you a gift, you're thankful that gift you got to behold and hold, and no matter for how long, so I'm very excited for this, for Carrie to share a little bit more, but I also want you to share about what do you think about Hannah, because that's my favorite of yours. Is Elizabeth's favorite is Hannah. I just love the way she didn't only ask the Lord, like, Lord, please help me have a baby. It was like she wailed so hard in the Lord that the priest thought she was drunk, because sometimes there's a prayer in our heart so burdened that all we can't even speak, it's just tears flow. And God sees those tears. He hears the cry of your heart, and he doesn't want to, he's not punishing you. I hope no one thinks that. He's trying to do his will in your life. And we don't always understand it, right? His ways are not our ways, as you and I said. Because
I think I don't understand it more than I do.
That would make us really say we're not God, because we don't understand it. And you know what? God is different than people. But I do think that when you wait a long time for that baby, longer wait, the greater the miracle. Some miracle happens in your heart, because along the way you became more patient, and you make more. When some other woman has that trial, you're more compassionate towards them. Things grow in your heart that you can't see, that really people look at me and like say, oh, nothing ever bad happens to her, because I put on Christ every day, and the joy of the Lord is our strength, regardless of our circumstances, I feel. But anyways, you keep going, Carrie. I like your stories.
I like that. I recently had a friend the other day that was struggling, and I said, just go yell and that's tell God, like, in that. And it's not that you're yelling at God, but you're sort of, you're getting it out. And I think I agree with that. I think it's a beautiful thing and really the whole purpose of struggling is intimacy with God. God always has a purpose.
Yes.
Sometimes we know, and sometimes we can see sort of little purposes in that suffering. Certainly my own suffering through infertility is playing out in my role in the way God is calling me. But there's always something that God is working, and it's sanctifying, the sufferings that we go through.
I know, I tell women this too, a trial, if it wasn't a cross in your life, it wouldn't be heavy to carry. Like it was just, it'd be like a piece of cake, say, okay, I'll have
Yeah.
these. But if it's a trial that Jesus himself had to have, and I share it many times, he had to have someone carry the cross with him. He also fell 3 times. So if you are dismayed or burdened or upset, give Carrie a call. I mean, seriously, you have to have a shoulder to cry on, someone that's going to jump for joy in your successes, and someone that goes like, I'm so sorry. Sincerely, I'm sorry, and I will take you to prayer. Pat and I take many people to prayer, Carrie. We have prayer time at 8:00 in the morning, and we'll meet random people. It can be about infertility or other things, and we really do bring them to prayer, because sometimes even you don't have anybody to call, and if you're, you don't know, should I call this person? You know what they're going to say, and you have to trust the people you share your heart with, expose your heart with. Right. As a physician and a PA, Carrie's a PA and my husband's a physician. They have to be trustworthy, and they are people opening their heart to hear your story. Don't you think, Carrie?
Yeah, I think that's really the favorite part of what I do, and why, I was a stay-at-home homeschooling mom before I decided to go back to PA school. I went back to PA school, and my youngest was 5 months old. And a lot of people around me, a lot of close people around me, really did not what thought I had gone off the deep end. Not my husband. My husband was like fully supportive, of course, but to give up being a stay-at-home mom, which was a struggle. I mean, that was hard for me to wrap my head around, as to how could this decision be more holy than me being at home. But one of my really good friends, she's a youth minister, she said to me, you've got your head in this box, and in your head, being a stay-at-home mom is the best thing for your kids. But really what the best thing for your children is to do God's will. That is what the best, and that's where the most fruit will come from. And so I kind of took that to heart, but it was certainly a struggle when the many hours I was away, and trying to go through PA school with a nursing 5-month-old. But God, I mean, somehow I made it. It's divine intervention, but by far, and the support of my husband, who's my rock. I could never have done any of this without his, constant encouragement. He never complained. He always made me feel like I was doing the right thing. And but yeah, it's definitely a journey in sort of discerning that, and working through the frustrations, and working through the uncertainty of what you're doing and how this is, because it didn't turn out the way I thought it was going to, for sure, which was another bump, but then here I am now. So you never know where life's going to take you.
You don't, and I think what's like women out there, if you don't know your purpose, it could be any purpose. The purpose that God sows in your soul, even maybe sometimes from a young girl, is what you're supposed to do. And sometimes people get nervous. They go, "What if God sends in the mission field?" He may not do that. If that's not he matches it with your personality and your gifts and your talents, and then you go forth. You're excited to go to work. I hear people say, I don't like my job. I go, whoa, maybe you're in the wrong job. Like, I make money. And it's just, amen. Okay. I would say spend some time in adoration, in prayer, and ask the Lord, what are you calling me to do? And then when you know your purpose, you come alive. It's like you come alive in your purpose. Just like when you get your newborn baby, you look at it and go, this baby is so beautiful.
And that's what's been so hard for me these last 2 years, because God showed me this purpose. I mean, he literally drew it on the wall in a vision, adoration in 2013. That's how long I've been trying to get this going.
That's right.
And so I've been like making strides towards it. Then there was PA school, and then everything fell apart. And so for 2 years, it's like I was saying, he's like, God showed me this purpose, but then he's like, but not now.
Wait for it. Wait for it. But go on. So then
well, hopefully, I don't know. I mean, things could change tomorrow. But as of now, we'll be opening.
I'll tell you what God doesn't do. I'm going to tell you for sure. What he doesn't do is dangle something before you and then say, no, I'm not going to do that. He puts the desire in your heart, it grows bigger and bigger. But in the midst of that, he has change on the inside. But he never, I say to people, that's not my God, because my God is bigger, and he does give us the desires of our heart. But this is a trip. Delight in the Lord and give you the desire of your heart. You delight in him, and that's when he gives you the desire of your heart. But the waiting timeline for God and us is, I'm like yesterday, remember, and then he's like, wait for it, and it will come. The vision will come. My purpose in life is to talk about motherhood and write and speak on, motherhood, the faith.
And you do it so beautifully.
I do what I do, and then I think, I'm not qualified. I don't like to think, but you had to, for your particular field, I mean, they're not gonna hire you to be a doctor or PA if you haven't gone to school for that. You see what I'm saying? So
Right.
you had to jump through a few hoops because you want, and you had, I know Carrie's a very bright gal. It was a challenge, but she really, really loved to learn. I have a friend like that, and
Yeah, I loved PA school. I loved every minute of it, but it
see,
was
so I'm
definitely
just saying, he matches your gifts and talents to your desire and your, and she does help her patients, and it's so wonderful to see this coming to fruition, because I actually thought it was already moving along, but there's that step, jump from PA school, I mean, from where we were to PA school, and now the vision may come. It's in Habakkuk. It will may tarry, but it will come. Habakkuk 2, y'all can look it up. So we're going to close off soon, but I don't want to leave anything out. So what more things did you want to say to the audience? Because I want you to address the women a little more, because women are so complicated, and some they do this, Carrie. Well, it's okay. I don't care if I have a baby, but they do. Sometimes some do. And so what do you say? I mean, I don't know. Tell the women more things that you would say to yourself, even.
I think it takes a lot of sort of looking into self and really examining those desires and examining your own spiritual life and how your intimacy with God and how he's using those desires and all of that. So I certainly think, while I do think you have to get to a place of acceptance, I certainly did in my infertility journey, where I had to get to a place where I had to say, okay, God, like, it may not be your will for me to have biological children, and I have to be okay with that. But if that's going to be the case, then, you need to give me strength to get through this. And I need peace with that, and so I finally was able to kind of get to that place. And it wasn't like, oh, I got to that place and then I got pregnant the next day. It was definitely quite some time, but it was much easier for me. Yes, it was much easier for me to deal with the infertility, just sort of having that peace and acceptance that God was in control. And, I didn't have this just daily anxiety where the fact that I couldn't get pregnant was just sort of all encompassing. And that can be, it almost becomes like your God, like instead of worshiping our Lord, it's more the infertility that you're focusing on.
Yes.
And that causes issues in marriage. Infertility is a very big stress on marriage. And, you definitely have to, I try to, involve the husbands as much as they're willing to be involved, because that's a huge part of it as well.
That's very important about the husbands. What would you say the husbands then? Because they have to be bring the chocolate and the flowers, because you know what? Women are made with these things called emotions and hormones, and the flowers and chocolate don't make the difference in the baby, but just to be there to say, I care if we never.
Yeah. And I think it's important not to forget about the husband's emotion. Like my husband, when he sort of tells our story, for him, husbands tend to sort of be the fixers and the problem solvers. And so that was very frustrating because he couldn't fix or solve this problem. And so he felt useless and he felt unworthy. And so that was something that he had to sort of work through. While sort of being my support as well. And so I think the husbands are definitely often forgotten in the infertility journey, because it's usually the health wise. I mean, we definitely check the men's fertility and things like that, but more often than not, it's the female, which then also brings a lot of guilt on them as well. But the husband kind of tends to be forgotten, especially his spiritual and mental health in this whole journey. But it's just as important.
And it's good to have mentors for men too. I know men don't really like the word mentor or spiritual director that much, but a mentor is different than a spiritual director. They accompany you on the journey. The spiritual director accompanies on your spiritual journey, but we live in the natural as well. So we're hopefully not in the flesh. But I'm going to say we live in the natural, and we have to have people that say, I've been there, I've done that, and here I am, I'll help you along. And it's not a failure to have someone by your side. So Carrie, I like what you said about facing it. And like contentment with peace is great gain. So if you face it, it doesn't make it go away. I just sang this to one of my friends down at Plymouth. The bear went around the mountain to see what they could see, and all that they could see was the other end of the mountain. And those who know Pat and Deacon Pat and I, we've traveled to different places. No one actually knows where we live, because I don't know what house you in now. Because we went around the mountain trying to find where you're supposed to be, because to make us the most healthy as a couple and as in my health wise. So we went around, then we ended up right back where we started from. I know,
I lost track for a while. I'm like, where are the Mongans? What are they in today?
we really had a lot of we did a lot of growth in our own inner person, because when you're away from family, friends, ministry, your life in general, and your children, you do a lot of praying and saying, Lord, what are you trying to teach me? But you end up right back where you started from. So that is a really good thing to do, is face that trial and say, why, Lord? Or what, Lord? What are you trying to teach me? The why is so important, Carrie. There's Pat teaches the deacons in South Carolina, and sometimes you just have to ask why. Why is this as it is? And the why gets you closer to God rather than anything. Don't limit God to being like, you could hear God with a still, gentle voice, like, Alicia, is this you, Lord? It was in the quietness. And then you can hear him through the scripture, through other people. You might be walking to the grocery store, and all of a sudden that answer is right there. So look for God. It's like a treasure hunt, but with spiritual eyes set on him. And so I think that that's very important, to face it, to listen for his voice. And you can ask why. You can cry. You can ask why and cry. You can go like, I really do want a baby, Lord. And he knows that. So that the best time to pray for me is the middle of the night. I say, no one's up at me. I can hear, there's no noise. So I can hear the Lord. My brain's not even going. I'm half asleep. So it's just pray wherever you can. Make an appointment with God each day and take some time. You'd be surprised how miracles happen when you do a daily surrender. Like, Lord, today I surrender all to you. Not a one-time thing. Because the next day you might backslide. Yeah. So, Carrie, we're going to say last words. We are gone. Probably, I have a clock now. I want to show it to you. It's big enough that I can see without my glasses. Look at this clock. Nice. So people were saying 45 minutes. So I try to keep it at 45 minutes because I still think.
Has it been 45 minutes already?
Well, yeah. When it gets to the little 3, but then you know what I'm saying. We had fun though. I have so much fun here meeting the people. And my co-host is Jan Baumberg. She has 11 kids. She's also very fertile, and she would love this show. So I'm going to send it to her. I'm going to send it to a lot of places. So if you want to hear more, please, Kyrie's going to tell you how to get a hold of her. She's going to give her last words to sum it up, and she's going to tell her email or whatever she lets. Some people don't let everything out. I don't know what you're supposed to tell her, what not. Myself, I'm that not new at computers, but I didn't know the email world. So what do you want to share for your closing, not argument, your closing thoughts?
My closing argument. I'm so excited to meet my future patients. I've already praying for you and for them, and I've lit so many candles at the Basilica in Orlando.
My favorite place.
Yes, every time I go there, I light a candle for my infertility patients specifically. But I'm excited to finally be carrying out this part of what God's been calling me to do for so long. And I'll be definitely praying for my patients, and please pray for me. And I've got a lot of work to do. That's right. Not a lot of time. No, but God, God always makes it happen. So just definitely keep me in your prayers, and you can you can keep up with me. You can look for Santa Casa Center on Facebook. My website is www.santacasacenter.com. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. The best way is probably email, which my email is C Huebner. So C as in Carrie, H-U, E as in Edward, B as in boy, N as in Nancy, ER @santacasa.com.
Thank you, Carrie. You've been an excellent guest. We'll have you on again because I know Jan wants to meet you. Okay, so this is Ellen Mongan, and I want to sum it up by saying life is a miracle. And no matter how small, a person is a person, no matter how small. And so those of you who want to desire a baby, get a hold of Carrie if you're having trouble in this area. But those of you who have thought about, gee, I don't really want this baby, a good option is adoption, but treasure what God gives you. A person's a person, no matter small. We're all for pro-life. It's pro-life month, Carrie, right? And we're all for pro-life. And I was given 8 children, like I said, I never even babysat. I wasn't even capable. I was shocked, really, Carrie. Every time I was shocked, and I stopped telling Pat, like 5th child, I call someone else. I go, I'm pregnant, because I didn't know how you'd react. Pat was from a small family, it's from a large family. And so, whatever way God does your life, whatever family he decides for you, whatever career, it's very important to stay in tune with his voice and in tune with his word and in tune with the sacraments. Stay with someone that's walking close to him, and you'll be on the right direction. So, Carrie, I enjoyed it. One more time, how to get a hold of you, and then I'm going to close it off.
You can go to www.santacasa.com. All my contact information is there, or email Huebner, CHUEBNER @santacasa.com.
Beautiful. And thank you again for being our guest. This is Ellen Mongan. Thank you. Come on again with Gina. This is Ellen Mongan from Wow Mom. Tune in again, tell a friend, and please pass this on and look at all the other YouTube ones. My contact is wowellen@yahoo.com. So I'll see you next time. And this is Ellen Mongan closing off. This is what I'm gonna do right now. And this is the part that gets a little complicated. I know on the air that I'm not the, her husband's an IT guy. So he'd probably laugh at me. I'm trying to IT my way through this to find the word record in my
I'm not good
blindness.
at this stuff either. So.
So thank you again. Here we go. And closing off now. And